taken by the coalition government in 1999 to 2002 to fulfill the Copenhagen criteria. And the period from the end of 2002 to the end of 2005, this period is referred to as the golden age of urbanization by Öner and Yılmaz. In addition to the influence of domestic change in Turkey, which also was mentioned during the presentation of the ambassador, stagnation in Turkey-EU relations, also inconsistent statements about and attitudes of the EU political elites about Turkey's membership, which was also mentioned by Ravza, and the slowing of the momentum of the integration process because of Cyprus issue and France, who vetoed opening of several chapters of the EU acquis, have been influential on increasing emphasis on multidimensional approach in Turkish foreign policy. Another important factor is the change in the, of course, in the political elites and domestic change in Turkey, which increased this multidimensional approach in Turkish foreign policy. And we can see the influence of strategic depth doctrine of Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu, who was a former scholar. The recent change in Turkish foreign policy discourses and preferences have been influenced by the visions of Davutoğlu, and the increasing emphasis on multidimensional approach in Turkish foreign policy, especially, is being influenced by his strategic depth doctrine. He argues that in order to have a long-lasting strategic perspective, you have to take into account historical depth, which provides links between the past, present, and future, also a geographical depth, which is based on the dynamics of the relations between domestic, regional, and global factors. And in this period, and after the September 11, we can see Turkey, the construction of Turkey as a bridge, especially within the framework of the project of Alliance of Civilizations project, which was initially proposed by Spanish Prime Minister Zapatero, and Spain invited Turkey to co-sponsor the project, and the Turkish government accepted this proposal. And after this process, the bridge metaphor has been frequently used for Turkey, and Turkey's position as a bridge between the West and the Muslim world has been emphasized much more. Davutoğlu argues that Turkey should not be seen only as a bridge country which only connects two regions. He states that Turkey is a Middle Eastern, Balkan, Caucasian, Central Asian, Caspian, Mediterranean, Gulf, and Black Sea country. Also, Obama, during his speech at Turkish National Assembly in 2009, he argues that they see your country at the crossroads of continents. This has been a place where civilizations meet and different peoples come together. They wonder whether you will be pulled in one direction or another, but Turkey's greatness lies in your ability to be at the center of things. This is not where East and West divide, this is where they come together. So we can see that from the bridge metaphor, there was a construction of Turkey more as a central country. During the AKP government, these goals and principles have been emphasized in Turkish foreign policy, which are balanced between freedom and security, zero problems with the neighbors, and multidimensional policies. Another concept is rhythmic diplomacy, which refers to proactivism in the field of diplomacy, trying to achieve a more active role in international organizations, and developing relations with new regions where there have been limited contacts in the past, such as Africa and Latin America. When we look at... How many minutes I have? Okay, sorry, so far. When we look at the Middle East policy of Turkey, according to Davutoğlu, Turkey's Middle East policy should be based on 4 principles. Common security for the whole region, priority must be given to dialogue to solve crisis, economic interdependence, cultural coexistence, and plurality. And when we look at the implications of these policies, the meetings of the extended neighboring countries of Iraq, which was initiated by Turkey, influenced considering the Iraqi question not only as a matter of US politics, rather than international issue, through involvement of regional powers. With the effect of the goal of the priority must be given to dialogue to solve crises in the region, Turkey has been acting as a mediator and facilitator in negotiations and conflict management instances, in Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. And an example to the realization of economic interdependence and cultural coexistence was the cooperation between Turkey and Syria. And after the very problematic period between Turkey and Syria, in 2003 Turkey signed several bilateral agreements with Syria in the fields of trade, tourism, and security. And they abolished visa requirements in October 2009, which increased the interactions between Syria and Turkey. When we look at the relations between Turkey and Iran, bilateral relations in the region carry particular importance in terms of the principle of economic interdependence as well as regional security. With the effect of the goal of the priority must be given to dialogue to solve crises in the region, Turkey has been acting as a mediator in negotiations and conflict management instances, as I mentioned you. And well, then we start to observe we started to observe debates on axis shift in Western circles, Western commentators, especially increasing relations with its neighbors, especially those in the Middle East, Davos affair in 2009, increasing tensions between Turkey and Israel, especially after the flotilla attack in 2010 of Israel, and Turkey's rejection to voting at the UN for sanctions against Iran for its uranium enrichment activities. And these incidents have led to those question whether Turkey is turning its back to the West. Önşen Yılmaz defined this period, post-2005 period, as a transformation period from Europeanization to a loosey Europeanization, or a soft Eurasianism. And Turkish foreign policy has maintained its Western orientation, but in a more flexible way. One of the main criticisms towards a multidimensional approach during the AKP government is the absence of the main axis around which multidimensional and proactive foreign policy is structured. The commitment towards Western orientation is questioned, although the key policymakers in foreign policy emphasize that the EU membership is still the key priority in Turkish foreign policy. We can see especially the comments of the Foreign Minister Davutoğlu. When we look at the reasons behind this increasing multidimensional approach, there can be many, as I mentioned some of them, domestic change, economic improvement, and increasing confidence. And also, I think, unclear and inconsistent attitudes of the EU political elites about Turkey's membership and lack of negotiations may lead to more emphasis on a multidimensional approach in foreign policy, and it may challenge also the priority of the EU for Turkey. So as a conclusion, I have several conclusions. Although there were some challenges and setbacks, the Western orientation of Turkish foreign policy has been maintained, I think, even after critical junctures in international field, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and September 11, or domestic changes cannot change the main orientation of Turkish foreign policy. Turkey's relations with the neighboring regions are not a substitute to its relations with the EU. The primacy of the EU for Turkish foreign policy is crucial for ongoing Europeanization of domestic policy fields, because none of the other relations can change or transform the domestic structure of Turkey and democratization process of Turkey, and they cannot help to the improvement of the living standards. Maintaining the EU as a central axis of Turkey's multidimensional foreign policy is also crucial for political stability, democratic consolidation, and a position of women in society, education, etc. So, because of these reasons, I think that multidimensional approach cannot be a substitute for the EU, but they can complement each other. So, if Turkey can develop stronger relations with the neighboring regions, it can be used as an accelerating factor for Turkey relations. On the other hand, Turkey, as a member of the EU, may play a more constructive role in Balkans, Caucasus, and the Middle East. So, they complement and support each other. Last 2 sentences. So during the negotiations between Turkey and the EU, if the challenges such as Cyprus issue cannot be overcome and the relations between Turkey and the EU will stop, it may lead to an increasing emphasis on increasing multidimensional approach in Turkish foreign policy. So there is a necessity for a more cautious and more balanced type of foreign policy activism sometimes, and multidimensional foreign policy needs to be structured around a more firmer Western orientation, and the EU should be maintained as the main pillar of multidimensional foreign policy. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Juliette Tolay from the University of Delaware. Her paper title is Turkey's Europeanness, Evidence from Turkey's Immigration Policies.
Thank you. Is the microphone working? Yes. I as well would like to thank the organizer for this very particular day. But especially because they are giving us this opportunity to talk about Europe and Turkey-Europe, which in the last couple of years is becoming quite of an unusual discussion. The interest has kind of shifted to other areas, and not only since 2005 we have an EU-Turkey relationship which has worsened and much more pessimism compared to the 2000-2005 period, but especially in the last really two years, there has been kind of a loss of interest, it seems at least, both from the European side, which we kind of knew already, but also from the Turkish side, as well as from the both kind of policy and academic circles. So there is less and less opportunities to talk about the EU, so I'm really glad to be able to do that here. And I'm also very happy to be able to talk both after the panel of this morning, because I think there are a lot of themes that will be recurrent, and after the two presentations, because I think my presentation is really building up very nicely on this. What I would like to do, and kind of the argument I'm trying to make, is kind of for a need when we think about Turkey-EU today, a need to kind of look beyond the direct kind of appearance political relations, which, as we know, are not going really well, but rather look at this kind of deeper transformation Turkey is undergoing, which we've been talking a lot, but kind of frame it and situate it within this EU-Turkey relationship. And basically, what I'm arguing is that Turkey is ongoing what I call a critical Europeanization. And I'm going to talk a lot more about this concept. But basically saying that there is an important yet unnoticed EU-Turkey to be told, which is one of Turkey in terms of values and in terms of policy becoming more European. At the same time, and this is not a contradictory thing, this is kind of the same process, at the same time Turkey is becoming more and more critical of the EU and of Europe. And I think this kind of framing it as critical Europeanization, becoming more European while becoming more independent and more critical of the EU is something very interesting to look at it. And before I kind of go along, I want to have a small disclaimer. I'm talking here about basically a discourse that I've heard a lot in my daily interaction with Turkish society in general. But I've been able to kind of evidence this particular trend in the issue area I'm kind of specializing on, which I'll be talking more later, which is Turkey's asylum and migration policy. But yeah, and I'm sure this is something actually we heard about Turkish foreign policy and in other issue areas that you can see as well. But this is not the only trend, and there are other trends kind of happening at the same time that may be contradicting this critical Europeanization. So basically, what I want to do in the next couple of minutes, I want to kind of tell you a little bit more what I mean by critical Europeanization. I want to kind of to illustrate this and show you how this applied in the field of asylum and migration for Turkey, and then I want to draw some of this policy implication that we've been urged to talk about for today. And basically, what kind of the quote that I use to kind of illustrate this process of critical Europeanization, which I really love, is a sentence that you can hear a lot in Turkey, which is, you know, we are more European than the Europeans, so we are becoming more European than the Europeans. And I really love this sentence because it is, so of course it's a discourse, so it has to be kind of looked at critically, but it is not saying that, you know, we Turks are better than Europeans. It is not saying we are Europeans. It is saying we are more Europeans than the Europeans. And here again, you can see a lot of contradiction in this particular sentence. First of all, it kind of again, it's not saying simply we're Europeans. There is kind of, in a way, a distanciation by talking about the Europeans as kind of a somewhat another. At the same time, there is kind of clear critical aspect of, Europeans are not perfect, and as a matter of fact, we could be better than them on certain issues. But at the same time, really identifying with Europe and kind of really being proud of having reached at the same time this standard of being European. And this goes back to a very kind of, and we've been talking a lot about this, kind of a long story of a very ambivalent relationship between Turkey, the Ottoman Empire before, and Europe, which is kind of both despised for all these kind of imperialist ambitions and kind of unfair policies towards Turkey, and at the same time admired for its values and for the political system, and this ambivalence has been translated here. And I think it goes a lot to, the reason why this sentence, we are more Europeans than the Europeans, sounds very contradictory, yet makes a lot of sense to a lot of people, is because, as we know, the kind of being European has been associated over the last 150 years at least, to first this kind of standard of civilization. Being European means having reached the standard of civilization. Then it has been associated with this idea of modernity. Being European means being modern. And more recently, we have this more kind of Europeanness associated with kind of democracy and liberalism. And so I think a lot of what is actually being said today when some Turkish people would say we are more Europeans than the Europeans, actually want to say we may be on some issue areas, I would argue, we may be more liberal and more democratic than the Europeans. But it's just very interesting that they're actually talking about we are more European than the Europeans. And so yeah, this is where you have, and kind of, there is, I think, increasingly a dissociation in kind of the Turkish consciousness between, what is so-called and referred to as the European norms, which may or may not be European. It's kind of a different source of debate. And European practices that I think are not necessarily in line with one another. And this is where kind of Turkey is starting to dissociate and understand that there may be a gap, at least, in between the two. So this is what I mean by critical Europeanization. Turkey is becoming more critical of European practices while adopting and kind of feeling more European in terms of the values and policies implied. So let me show you how this is working in the case of immigration policy. So I'm here talking just to situate. We hear a lot about Turkish migrants in Europe, or we hear a lot about internal migration in Turkey. I'm actually specializing on another issue, which is immigration going into Turkey, like foreigners from Europe, from Black Sea, from the Middle East, of people coming into Turkey, which is much less well known, but a very interesting issue. As you know, kind of migration always bringing up questions of identity. So when we talk about the way Turkey refers to themselves, it's a very interesting one. And it's kind of complex and sometimes very technical story, so I don't want to lose you in those type of details. But just to make a complex story start, Turkey actually historically had a lot of immigration and had developed several migration policies. It just happened that by the end of the Cold War, basically, the new flows of migration